I did want to ask if there have been any successful discharges at any of your facilities. I know we talk a lot about the youth that are currently there and some of the struggles that they're having, and the way that they're reacting or acting out towards staff. But has anyone seen any successful discharges at your agencies that you'd like to talk about, or just share your experience on how well that went? Renessa, if you're talking, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you.
I won't go into specifics, but I will say that at Piney Ridge Treatment Center, we've had a ton of successes, well, all along, but even recently, we had a young resident, or not a young, but a resident here get his GED, and he had super duper high scores, almost amazing scores. We have residents, taking their ACTs. We have residents who have discharged from here that different workers and family members just remark how much they've changed. So I think that all facilities are having a ton of successes, and I'm glad that we can focus on that.
Good, good. Thank you for sharing that, Renessa. I did want to talk briefly about some current trends that I've been seeing just through the incident reports that are being shared with the licensing agency. Um, and of course, they involve an increase in youth fighting, and threats of harm towards staff. And there has been a slight increase in some self-harming behaviors. And I just wanted to bring attention to everyone about, hey, it's not just your agency. We're seeing this across the state. So please keep in mind of those type of behaviors and how you need to address those behaviors, and try to be proactive, and not as reactive as it may seem. I did just want to share some information that I found from the Mayo Clinic of Disease, their reference. And of course, you all may know this information, but some causes for self-harming behaviors include that some youth have poor coping skills, or the inability to cope in healthy ways. Um, there could be some difficulty managing emotions. That person may have a hard time self-regulating, expressing or understanding emotions. There could be the mix of emotions that trigger self-injury. For instance, they could have the feelings of worthlessness, loneliness, panic, anger, guilt, rejection, self-hatred, or be confused about their sexuality. So please keep those things in mind. Um, as some of you may have been doing at your current facilities, talk to your youth. Um, Ask them how their day has been, check with the school, see how their behavior's been at school. Are they doing well at school, or yeah, are they experiencing difficulties there as well? Don't ignore the child. It, they're probably having 1,000 thoughts at one time, and it may be beneficial if someone can just take the time and really, spend some time with their youth and talk to them other than their therapist. So just keep those things in mind. I did want to talk about some PRLU updates that's coming along, and it's really one thing. But we have been working with developers to create the enterprise licensing system, or ELS. You may hear that in the next coming months. But that system will be available for all citizens, all providers, and of course, all of our licensing staff. The ELS system will allow for licensed providers to submit all requests. So we're doing all of that electronically instead of you just sending an email. You can formally do that through this system. You can make your board request. It'll allow you to update your org charts, update renewals for any insurances, your fire and health inspections. It'll allow providers to submit provider reported incidents. Citizens will be able to search for facilities across the state. They'll be able to submit complaints electronically. You'll be able to identify who your current licensing specialist is. I know that's been an issue for some, so hopefully we can take care of that. So there'll be a wide range of things that you'll be able to do with this new enterprise licensing system. And our expected goal of having this completed is within the next maybe 3 to 4 months. And as we're testing the product, I'll be sharing more information about that system as well. So that is all that I had. So before we get into our guest speaker for today, does anybody have any questions that you all would like to ask, or is there anything that you need to address? If you don't want to say it out loud, you can put it in a chat box, or you can just email me when you get a chance. So now I will turn it over to my coworker, Ms. Kayla Bodi, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Ebony, and thank you for having me today. We're really excited to provide a training over background checks for all of you. I am the program manager here for what we call the background check unit. If we are sending you an email, you will also see the term used, regulatory checks. So those are the same thing. And I'm going to just introduce, we've got some of our team on the call so that you can kind of put a face to a name. The first person I want to introduce is Brinda Burr. She is our program coordinator. So she's the supervisor here in the background check unit, and I'm going to let her just kind of give you the names of our staff here in our unit that are processing these checks for you all.
Okay, I'm Brenda Burr, and on the call we have Alicia Christopher, and you can just wave, and then we have Cynthia Smith. You all should receive emails from them or myself. We also have Brandy Brewer on the call, and Mikhail Sellers, and Yolanda Robinson. So that's our team for the background check unit.
Thank you, Brenda. So today we're going to go through, I'm going to present you with some slides. I will also have these available in PDF format. So if you have any questions or you would like a copy of this slideshow, please put your email in the chat box. We will make sure that we get you a copy of that. And Brenda will also be watching for any questions. So feel free to put those in the chat, and we will also take questions at the end. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. Okay. So today we're going to talk about background checks. We are going to go through the process of how to submit background checks, and we are going to talk about out of state and statuses, who needs a background check. We're going to kind of cover a lot of information. So again, feel free to ask any questions. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing that we are going to discuss is who needs a background check. When we talk about placement in residential facilities with child welfare, such as yourself, we really have two separate entities that we will discuss. So we do have facilities that accept DCF as foster care children, and that's those of you who receive the 4A funding. So you should know if you receive that funding that there's going to be different regulations for you. And then we have all of our other placement in residential facilities. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these charts, just so that you know you're looking at the correct one that you fit into. Now, regardless of the type of facility, all staff and volunteers must have an FBI background check completed from the new law that went into effect in 2019. So even if the applicant goes to another facility, they will have to complete that background check. It is a one-time, but it's one time per facility. I just wanted to make that clear. So for all of our facilities, whether you accept the DCFS foster children and you're in that 4A funding, or they are a volunteer, they're going to be getting a maltreatment check done every 2 years. And that is the Arkansas child maltreatment. Now, the same goes for your criminal state check. That is also going to be every 2 years under those facilities that carry that 4A funding. And then you're going to have your FBI, which is one time. And again, that's for all of your employees, anyone that is unsupervised, has staff row with children, even your transportation staff, they need to have these background checks completed. If you have questions, you can always reach out to your licensing specialist. You can reach out to Ebony and refer to your licensing standards. But this is just to help you understand the difference. That is for those facilities that accept the DCFS foster children. Now, all of our other placement residential facilities are going to follow the same protocol for the child maltreatment. It's every 2 years. However, the criminal is going to be every 5 years. And then the same for the FBI, that is going to be a one-time, it's a done deal for your employees at your facility. If they do go to a new facility, again, they will have to submit a new background check, and they will have to submit a new FBI. So the background checks are specific to your facility. And just a few extra reminders here. So if you're looking at the top chart, talking about those of you that accept DCFS foster children, all background checks must be in an approved status on the online background check system before an applicant may begin working. So this includes your out of state, that overall status must be approved. For those of you that do not accept that type of funding, all of our other residential and placement facilities, your background check must be initiated within 10 days of employment. Do we have any questions regarding these two charts and guidelines for your background checks? No,
This is Marlon, Forest City. I have a question.
yes.
Of course, I always do. So say for instance, for the FBI, I know you said that it's done once. Now, does this rule still apply if they move to another state? Will they, say for instance, if they lived in Arkansas and we run an FBI and then they move to Tennessee, do we need to run another FBI?
If they move to Tennessee, they're still going to continue employment with you, or they moved to
Yes.
Tennessee, they stopped employment when they moved?
They're going to continue employment with us.
If they continued employment, you wouldn't need to do anything further if you have completed background checks. Now, once the time period is up and you have to submit new background checks, then you are going to have to submit the out of state. But once you have that FBI check, it's done. So as long as they're approved, everything's done in the system until their criminal expires or their maltreatment expires. You wouldn't need to do anything else.
Okay, I just wanted clarity on the FBI.
Yes, and when it comes back around, you would just be submitting out of state. Yeah, that FBI is just one time.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're gonna move on and talk a little bit about prohibited offenses. Just to kind of give you an idea, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time, but I just want you to understand what we're kind of looking at when we are doing these background checks. There's two types of prohibited offenses with applicants. So you have your permanently prohibited offenses, and then you just have your what we call regular prohibited offenses. So these on the first column here, the permanently prohibited. So it does not matter if it's a misdemeanor, it does not matter if it's a felony or when it happened. If they commit and are found guilty of any of these offenses, they cannot work in your facility. This is not a full list. You can see the full list in your licensing requirement books. It should be in Appendix B. You can see the full list there. So we just wanted to highlight some. You can see these are going to be your more violent offenses. So you're looking at capital murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, murder. Those are prohibited permanently. Now, when we talk about prohibited offenses on the right-hand side, these are going to be that second column in your licensing book. These just prohibited offenses are going to be applicable if they are a felony, they would not be eligible, or if the offense was a misdemeanor and it was in the last 5 years that they were convicted. So if it was look at the very top one, theft of property, it was a misdemeanor, this happened 8 years ago, they would be eligible to work in your facility. If it was a misdemeanor and it was 1 year ago, they would not be eligible. If it's a theft of property and it's a felony, it does not matter how many years, it is just they're not eligible. And again, that's not a full list. We just kind of wanted to highlight a few because sometimes there's things that you may not think of, like theft by receiving, forgery. You know, sometimes it's not what you would think that they would be not eligible for, but it is. And these are all directly from the licensing standards from your requirement book. So read over those just so that you know. We don't want to discourage anyone from applying. So if you are talking to an applicant and they have questions, you have this knowledge to know that they may not be eligible, but we always want to encourage people to apply. We will look over their record, we will request information, and we will review it. So this is just to give you an idea. We wanted to share this information with you. Does anyone have questions where this information can be found or about any of these prohibited or permanently prohibited offenses? Let's move on. So we're going to talk about the electronic background check system. All placement residential programs must use the National Information Consortium of Arkansas, which is also called NICAR. You will hear us use that term a lot. This is our online criminal background check system. A background check through NICAR includes the following. So you're getting the Arkansas State Criminal, the Arkansas State Sex Offender Registry. If you are selecting an FBI, you will get the federal criminal background check, and then you will also receive, well, we will receive the National Sex Offender Registry check. So every time you submit, all of those things are being completed through the NICAR system. Providers must register for a subscription account in order to run background checks. We have a link here to the account, and it is currently an annual cost of $150. Again, that is annually. You must submit a separate online child maltreatment registry check for each employee, and this is completed through the central registry. So our unit processes the federal and the criminal, and we do look over the results of the child maltreatment. We don't actually process those. So it's a separate online system that you're submitting to. And so we just like to remind providers that those are going to be uploaded to a different system. We will review those, but we do not actually process those. And I will have their contact information as well on the slides. Okay, and now we are going to go through a step-by-step process on submitting the background check and what exactly we're looking for on those consent forms and what we are reviewing. So once you've subscribed to your NICAR account, you are ready to submit your applicant. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to complete the consent form. And I'm sure most of you are already aware of what these consent forms look like. But there's a screenshot here. It's just a request for criminal background check. The most critical part of this is making sure that you are putting in accurate information and that you are selecting the correct reason for background check. So you're going to have options here. The very first option is going to be child care. Make sure that you're selecting if you're child welfare with placement residential, if you're doing a foster parent or adoptive parent, that you're selecting the correct option here. You're going to fill out the applicant's information, and then you're going to submit this form. And we've got a link directly to the form there as well. So again, if you want the PDF versions, you'll have all of the links kind of in one place. Once you have completed and submitted this information, you're going to put in an email address, and it's going to come to that email for you to print and be notarized. This is a total of 3 pages. And the very first page is going to be your applicant's information. So it's going to have their name, date of birth, their email, the name of your facility, driver's license number, all of that important information will be on page 1. If you find from your applicant that they have lived out of state in the last 5 years, now would be the time to go ahead and get ready to submit those checks. There are some states that take a little longer than others. For example, right now, Texas is about 60 days out on getting those maltreatments done. So it would be beneficial to go ahead and start that process right now when you're reviewing this information. The second page is the notary page. And when we are processing your background checks, this is the most common place that we see mistakes. If you are getting a not approved within 24 or 48 hours of submitting your check, it is 100% an issue with the consent form. It's not because the applicant is ineligible. That would not be enough time for us to process them if it was due to a prohibited offense. If you are getting an immediate not approval, it is because there is something wrong with the consent form or the information that you have submitted is incorrect, such as the date of birth or the name. So we really can't stress enough to take your time on this part. When you're on this second page and the notary is completing it, if the stamp is not legible, if the date that the applicant signed and the date that the notary signed do not match, it's going to be not approved. If the name of the applicant does not match and that the signature does not match their name, it's going to be not approved. So this section here is just very important. We get audited here in our office, just like all of you do. And so this is part of our audit, is making sure that these consent forms are correct. This is giving us the ability to look at the information, the actual criminal record. So if it's not correct, we are violating that compliance. So they're thoroughly looked at. And then the last page, the third page, is related to the federal portion of the check. It's giving the applicant the challenge information. It's just a signature and a date. If the date is different on this page, that's fine. That's not part of the notary section. So just really make sure that all of your information is accurate on page 2. And just double check everything before you upload it. If you know that you've made a mistake or you see something and you've already uploaded it, reach out to us, call us, get one of our email addresses. I haven't checked the chat, but I'm sure Brenda is putting emails in the chat box. Reach out to us and say, hey, I made a mistake on my consent form. Can I get some help with that? You can correct it, send it to us, and we will upload it for you. That way we can get it processed. You don't have to submit the applicant again. You don't have to get charged again. We can fix that. So this is just a really important part. This is just where mistakes, we can't let those happen. And so you're going to get that not approved, but rest assured we can change it and we're here to help. So call us or email us and we'll help you with that. Does anyone have any questions on this portion of the consent form? So once you've got it notarized and it's all completed, you're ready to log into your account. This is what the homepage of the NICAR system looks like. Next, you are going to click on the search tab. This is where you're going to fill out all of your applicant's information. And I recommend to have a copy of the applicant's driver's license in front of you when you're doing this part. You're going to need that for this information. You want to make sure that their first and last name match what is on their driver's license when you're putting it in. If they just got married and their driver's license has their maiden name, I would either hyphenate it here or I would use the name that is on their driver's license. You can also have them get their driver's license updated. Whatever you decide to do, it needs to match exactly what's on their driver's license, including the date of birth, because that is how the fingerprint technicians are going to verify their identity. So make sure that the information you put in is accurate. I know sometimes my system will auto populate some dates of birth that I put in previously or names, and your system may do that as well. So just make sure that you're entering the correct information. Now, You are going to see a place to submit your consigned documents, your 3 pages. You're going to upload that in a PDF format. Then you are going to select your purpose, which again is the CHW for child welfare. And then you have a couple of options here for your state and your FBI. If you are just renewing the state, you can select the state only. Otherwise, you're going to be doing the FBI and the state option. So unlike our childcare facilities, you guys have those 2 different options. Please be aware that if you select the state only option and you later need to go back and run an FBI on this applicant, that button is only going to be available for 2 weeks and then it's going to go away. You won't be able to submit an FBI on that applicant without redoing the entire process over again. And we'll kind of get into where you'll look for that information. So if this is a first-time applicant, you know you're going to have to run their FBI, I would go ahead and select FBI and state, just so that you don't have to try to remember to go back within 2 weeks and click the Run FBI button. Does anyone have any questions on this page? All right, now you've got your information put in. You are going to review your work. Again, this is a crucial part. Take a few seconds, look over the name, the date of birth, make sure that it all matches their driver's license. We do not want these applicants to take time out of their day and go down to get fingerprinted and they get turned away. And you know, if they're on your time or their own time, we don't want that to happen. And they will get turned away if the name or the date of birth is incorrect. They will not be able to be fingerprinted. So make sure your information is correct here. You will see a total of your fees before you submit. And then you're going to get a confirmation page on the right with a transaction number. This transaction number and search ID number are the same. It's going to begin with CHW00 and end with your search ID number. This is the number that you're going to need to schedule fingerprints. So I would print a confirmation or jot this down so that you can go ahead and go on to the next step of scheduling your fingerprints. And you can also, you can always go back to find that if you need it. And we will show you here. And we just have a tip that if you did make a mistake and you go back to step 1 to change any information, just be sure that you're reattaching your consent form and making sure that you have correct selections before you move forward. Now that you're ready to schedule fingerprints, if you didn't write your transaction number down, you can always go into your history tab in your account. But if you have it written down, you are ready to go to the DHS fingerprint appointment online system. It's very simple to use. You're just going to click make appointment. And then the fingerprinting button is going to pop up and you'll just click there. Now we do have a little note here to make sure that your applicant is no longer in your pending tab in NICAR before they go to be fingerprinted. What we're talking about is if you did put in any information incorrectly, or if your applicant has lived out of state recently in the last 5 years. When you submit them, it is going to take Arkansas State Police a little bit of extra time to research that applicant and get the correct information. Typically, it is an instant result to us. They're going to go immediately into your history section. However, if there is any information needed, they're going to stay in your pending tab in your account. So if you schedule them to go get fingerprinted tomorrow, just verify that they're no longer under your pending tab is what we mean. They won't be able to get fingerprinted if they're still pending state police results. It does not happen very often. It is rare. But if you do know that this applicant lived out of state, I would just keep an eye on that because sometimes it can take 24 hours for those results to come through. Does anyone have any questions about that? Let's move on. Now that you are scheduling your fingerprints, you're going to fill out the applicant's information here. It's just very simple, name, and then you're going to put in your transaction ID. Again, it's going to be CHW, and then your 9 digits are going to be 00, and then the search ID number. That is what your transaction number is going to look like. And just a tip here, that last section that says E number, that is only going to be if you are submitting for a rejection. So if the fingerprints are rejected and this is going to be the second time an applicant is going back, that's where you'll put that E number that you received in the mail from Arkansas State Police. Okay, you're going to get a summary page to confirm your information is accurate. You are going to select your appointment type. And here you're going to be able to type in the location for your city to find the nearest DHS office that allows fingerprinting. And it's going to give you this map here, so you can select whatever is closest for either you or the applicant. Next, you're going to put in the applicant's information with their email and their phone number. This is to send them a confirmation, and you will select the appointment date and time. So as a reminder, be sure that you submit the applicant's information correctly. On the email here, you want to use the applicant's email. If you are using your email as the director, after you do that so many times, it's going to stop accepting it because it thinks it's the same person submitting multiple times. So I would recommend use the applicant's email and phone number here. If they're getting that confirmation, you can have them forward it to you. But sometimes we see that it'll stop letting you use that same email. Also, make sure that the applicant takes their state issue ID with them to be fingerprinted. This can be either their state issued ID or their passport. If they do not have that to confirm their identity, they will be turned away from fingerprinting. So make sure that they have that ready and available. Do we have any questions about scheduling the fingerprints?
Kayla, has there been any issues with scheduling appointments that you're aware of in any areas across the state?
We haven't had any issues that I'm aware of. We did have one county location that was, you know, they were saying that they only could do it between a certain time period. But I think that was just due to staffing at a period of time. And so we reached out to the director of county operations to make sure that if that's the case, they're taking that block off their schedule. But as far as I'm aware of, we haven't had any issues. The appointments seem to be readily available. Most of the time you can go the same day, and they're only about 15 minutes. I have not had any complaints, but of course, if we do have any issues, you know, if there's any issues when scheduling, please reach out to us and we will make sure that we get with the director and find out what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Go on to next. Okay, so the last step of your background checks is going to be to submit the Arkansas child maltreatment. Now, your facility may also require an adult maltreatment. For some agencies, we do have other agencies within DHS that require adult, but for our purposes, you are going to be submitting a Arkansas child maltreatment. These must have 5 years of residency listed. And again, this is going to be submitted through the central registry. We have a link here and their contact information. Usually this is very easy and simple to complete. It's the same process. You're going to get the form that you've put in a request, and then you're going to upload that. The only thing that we ever really see an issue with this is making sure that you're submitting it under the correct option. So if you are submitting it under Arkansas DCFS as a foster family or a foster parent, that's fine. But the second option, if it's for employment, is what needs to be checked. It says you are a potential or current employee of a child care facility or residential facility licensed by Arkansas Department of Human Services. If it's submitted under anything else, we won't have access to it. We won't be able to see it. So we might not know that it's been done, and that's going to delay your background check. So make sure you're selecting that second option for employees. And then if it is for a foster parent, you'll select that option. I believe it's the fourth option down below. Any questions on how to submit the child maltreatment? Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about out-of-state requirements. This is usually a delay that's going to leave your applicant in provisional. Depending on the state, it could be a short amount of time, it could be a prolonged amount of time. So if they have lived out of state in the last 5 years, they are required to conduct a child maltreatment check for that state. We do have a link here to the Interstate Child Care Background Check contact list. And this list is a great resource. It has all of the states listed with some contact information. But this is also going to help you identify exactly what areas in the state are completing these maltreatment checks. Some states have one unit that's doing it all. Some are going to have many. And then we have also created a portion of our website dedicated to out of state so that you can select your state and you can see the step-by-step instructions with contact information. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. We do try to keep that information updated, but because other states change their policies, their regulations, so frequently it may not always be up to date. If you do see anything on our website that needs to be updated, reach out and let us know. But we really, really like to give out that contact list to just kind of help give you some guidance. And then here we've got our out-of-state special conditions. So if the applicant came from Tennessee or Oklahoma, our background check unit here will submit those ourselves. So you won't need to run those for the applicant. California does not supply records. They're a closed record state, so you won't need to submit anything for California. And again, we have the link here for our section of the out-of-state background checks, and you'll be able to select the state, and it's going to tell you what you need, who to contact, and how to complete it. We even have what the cost is for each state to just make it very simple. So what about applicants who have lived in a different country in the last 5 years? We do not require any type of maltreatment or records from another country, so they won't need to submit anything for that. Any questions on out-of-state requirements? Okay, so once you get the results, what do you do with those? You're going to send those to our background check unit. Some states may require it to go directly to our unit. Most of them now do not, but if they do, you can use our mailing address here. And then if they send you the results by email or mail, you can scan those or just forward the results on to us. We have a dedicated mailbox for those out of state, and it's just backgroundcheck@dhs.arkansas.gov. And it's there on the screen. That mailbox is going to come directly to our unit. So all of our staff do have access, but Miss Brinda Burr, she does process out of states for us on a regular basis. So we will check that mailbox. We'll get them processed for you. That's just the easiest way to send it without it kind of getting lost in the translation. And you have that one dedicated place you know where to send them. Okay, any questions? Okay, so this is something that we just wanted to touch on briefly about the different statuses that you're going to see in NICAR. And I've got a screenshot here. So your first status that we're going to look at is the FBI status. Next to the FBI status, once you've submitted your applicant, you've probably seen the fingerprint pending. And this means that the fingerprints have not been completed. Once they are completed, it's going to change to complete. If it says sent to harvester, that means that the fingerprints are in process or they've not been completed successfully. So there may be an issue when they went to get fingerprinted and it wasn't able to be processed through. If it stays in sent to harvester for more than 4 to 6 hours, please reach out to us, let us know, and we will find out what the hang up is on those prints. But we just want to stress that if it says fingerprints pending, that means that they have not completed the fingerprint process. Now, the overall status that you're going to see. So the first one is going to be pending. This means that the submission is in process. The applicant cannot work. They may not begin yet. Provisional, this means the submission is not complete. For example, the fingerprints may still be pending, the maltreatment may not be completed, or out of states are still, results are still pending. So if they're in that provisional status, you know, they haven't been approved yet. If you are a facility that provides care for those DCFS foster children and you receive that funding, if they're in provisional, that really doesn't mean anything to you. And again, the same for our other facilities. You have to initiate these checks within 10 days. If this does not go to a fully approved, it does not really help you. They have to be approved to work. So just keep that in mind. If it's in provisional, you know that the fingerprints are done. You know you submitted your maltreatment. You know you've got everything sent in and you're still showing provisional. Give us a call, send us an email. We have started a new process where we will send you an email if there are things missing, but you may have already submitted prints today. It may be, you know, you want to just get it done quickly. We know that everyone is short-staffed. You're trying to find people and get them hired off quickly. So if you need to get it expedited or you just have a question, call us, email us, please reach out. We'll be happy to look at it. If we can get it completed right then on, you know, that second, we will update it for you. So don't be afraid to call us. And it looks like some of my words got cut off there, but if they are approved, they are approved to work. They are completed, everything is done. And then if they are not approved, the applicant may not begin working. This may be because the applicant is not eligible for employment or the documentation uploaded is incorrect. So again, if you submit an application and the next day you get a notification that this person has been not approved, reach out to us. There is something wrong with the submission. Because if an applicant is not eligible because there is something on their background check, we give them due process of 20 days to submit information to us. So we are not going to put them at a not approved status based on their background check, their actual criminal information within 24 hours. It's going to take some time for that to go through because that applicant is you know, they have due process. They have the right to provide us with additional documentation. So I just want to put that out there so that, you know, if you're seeing them be not approved instantly, you reach out to us, find out what is causing this background check to be not approved. So another part of that is that the fingerprints, if you are running the FBI and the child maltreatment, they need to be in there within 45 days of you making this submission. You can't submit someone into the system and then just not get fingerprinted and not do your Arkansas child maltreatment for 3 months. It's going to be not approved in 45 days. So once you submit an applicant, you kind of, you know, that's plenty of time. Typically, you can get fingerprint scheduled the next day. The child maltreatment, you will normally get those back the same business day as long as it's early in the morning, if not the next business day. So we give plenty of time, but the reason for this is so that these applicants are not, you know, just hanging out in this provisional status, just waiting on these things to be completed. We want this to be all done so we can get them approved and get them working in your facility as quickly as possible. Does anyone have any questions about the statuses, what they mean, or anything else that I just went over? Okay, let's go on to the next. Okay, so I'm going to just reiterate some things. These are things that we just can't stress enough. So a staff member may not begin work until the NICAR overall status has been returned as satisfactory. So you should be seeing an overall approved status for that person to be working in your facility. You can log into your NICAR account to see the status. Make sure that all information is correct before submitting. The applicant's name and date of birth must match their state issued ID or passport. Please notify us when a staff member is no longer employed if they are in a provisional status. And again, this is something that's going to help make the process faster for you and for every other facility. If you are going to hire an applicant, you're starting the process, they're in provisional, and then they don't show back up, they quit, or you decide not to hire them. If you will shoot us an email, give us a call and say, hey, this person's not going to be taking the job, they're in provisional. What we'll do is we'll move them to not approved so that eventually we can archive them out and they're not just hanging out in that provisional status. That's going to make things move a lot faster on our end because we're not going back and checking on someone who's not even a candidate anymore at this point. So just reach out, let us know. You can send us an email. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. Just put the search ID in there, and you can put like they're no longer employed or we're not going to move forward with employment. And that kind of ties into the next bullet point here is when you email us, please try to include the search ID number. If you don't know the search ID number and you have to put the name, we understand that that can happen, but putting the search ID will help us to find that applicant much quicker and in turn get that process for you faster. Applicants working in placement residential facilities must have the federal portion of the background check completed at least once. And we've talked about that a couple of times, but we just want to reiterate, I know that, the law change was a big deal at that time, and we've had to change our system and the way things that work. So we just want to make sure that you understand that. So we've got some important phone numbers here. We have our background check unit, just the main line that you can ask for anyone in the background check unit. We have NICAR subscription account and the help desk. If you forget your password or you need assistance with payments, anything along those lines, you can call the NICAR subscription help or the help desk directly. And then we also have the Arkansas Central Registry phone number there for your maltreatments. And again, we'll send this all to you so you have all of this information. And then I'm not going to read all of these to you because we've talked about these throughout, but these again are possible delays in the process. So if an applicant is pending for more than 24 business hours, we adjudicate the next business day. So if it is a Monday, you should see a change on Tuesday. If it's still showing as pending, that means that the state criminal report is going to require additional information. It means there could be something on their state. It means that something could need to be processed. We're reviewing more information. So that could be a possibility for pending. You should not have applicants pending for longer than one business day. If that is happening, that is more than likely what is going on. You're more than welcome to call us and check in on it, but don't be alarmed if you do see that, and it shouldn't happen too often. Provisional delays. So these are if the fingerprints have not been completed, or if the fingerprints were rejected and this applicant has to go back a second time, obviously it's going to have to be a second appointment. It is going to take a little time to get those results from state police, so that can be a delay. If the child maltreatment has not been completed or the out-of-state checks have not been completed and sent to us. Those are all reasons that they could be left in provisional. And then you have your not approved, and I'm not going to read all of these because it's a lot of the same thing that we talked about. that notary stamp not being correct on those forms, the wrong name or date of birth being submitted. If the applicant was submitted more than once, so it's a duplicate entry, what we will do is on that duplicate entry, we will not approve one and then we will work the other one. And again, fingerprints or the child maltreatment, if they haven't been completed within 45 days of you submitting, they're going to be moved to not approved. So these errors are going to cause that background check to come back within the first 24 to 72 hours of submitting. And like we just talked about, you know, that's going to be where your issue is. It's not going to be necessarily tied to that person's background or what criminal offenses could or could not be on their results. So if you have any of these delays that are happening, reach out to us. We will for sure let you know what's going on. We will guide you on what we are needing, and we'll make sure that we get anything that we need to get you going. And with that, do we have any questions about anything that we just discussed? I know it's a lot of information, but does anyone have questions? All right, I don't see any questions, so I don't have anything further. We will make sure that we get this out to everyone who has put your information in the chat. I will send it to you in a PDF version so that you can click on those links and you can you know, go directly to any of the consent forms or anything else that we have provided to you. Thank you for letting us join and be a part of this. We are excited to be able to share some knowledge. We want to help you as providers and what you're doing for the children of the state. So I came from the childcare world. I know that turnover is high a lot of times, and when you need staff, you need them immediately. So we want to do our best to make sure that we are getting them as quickly as possible. And I also just wanted to say, you'll notice in our emails that we have a survey now at the bottom of our emails. If you receive good customer service or great customer service, or if you are getting customer service that is not so great, please take that survey. Let us know what your experiences are. We want to improve on our customer service skills and our ability to help you. So take that survey, let us know how we're doing. And again, we're thankful for your time, and I will hand it back over to Miss Ebony.
All right, thank you so much, Kayla. I really appreciate you and your team, you and Brenda. I do want to give you guys kudos because the background check unit works really hard every day. They're always extremely busy, and I don't think everyone knows how hard they work over there. So kudos to you all and your team. So keep up with the good work. So I really appreciate it. Just for the providers, if anyone has a permission to work to go before the Child Welfare Agency Review Board, the next meeting will be on April the 27th at 1:30 p.m. here in Little Rock at Central Office. And those meetings are now in person. So you do have to drive in and appear before the board for those permissions to work. I'm not sure if anyone from DCFS is on the call. I thought Rachel was on. She may have had to drop off, but I did want to give you all the opportunity to say anything. Okay, I don't see anyone. I have licensing specialists on the call. Does anyone from the licensing team have anything to say, or do you have any questions? Don't want to forget about you guys. Okay, Miss
Ebony.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Chelsea.
Sorry, I just wanted to hop in there because at the beginning of this year, I have been going through all of my facilities that are assigned to me and doing their background checks. And I just wanted to give a nice little applaud to all of my facilities that I've been going out to, because I have seen a significant improvement in some that were having some issues and struggling with it. And other ones who weren't struggling with it are really on the ball. And I've seen just great things. And I really, really appreciate it. They're keeping up with those background checks and getting them done in a very timely manner.
Good deal. Thank you, providers. Ms. Shay, do you have anything you need to discuss?
I don't. Thank you for asking.
Okay. We have a new employee. Her name is Eleanor White. She's one of our licensing specialists. If you can just wave your hand, Eleanor. There she is. She's currently in Fulton County. And so she will be helping us with a variety of things. So you may or may not see her. But again, that is all that I have from the licensing side. Providers, thank you again for all of the work that you're doing. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email. I'll reach out to Kayla to make sure that I also get a copy of that the PowerPoint she had of those slides, and I will email them out to everyone. So with that, everyone, please have a great day. Thank you.
You too.